This dirt was once at the bottom of an inland sea that cut a swathe through Queensland some 110 million years ago. Today, the land is covered in fossils that tell a story of life in the time of the dinosaurs. That is a Honda Transalp, a bike once thought extinct, now brought back to life by Honda. Can it survive out here today? Well, that's what we're here to find out.
That's how we used to travel through the desert. Now this is how we travel through the desert.
We set up camp on the banks of the Burke River, and by we, I mean the Daryl Beattie Adventures crew. That's Daz, Buddha, and Truckee Scott. You may know Daz best from his previous occupation as a 500cc GP rider, and I'll let a very excited Barry Sheen take it from here.
Oh, sorry, we want him to get in there.
Go on, Dazza!
Daryl Beattie gets it from Australia.
Excellent!
Nowadays, Daz runs motorcycle tours throughout remote Australia, from the Canning Stock route to Cape York, the Simpson Desert to Uluru, and well beyond. Our original idea for this ride was to test the Transalp with a double crossing of the Simpson Desert, but the unpredictable desert weather had other plans. I'll let Daz explain his new plan.
Well, all good ideas have a few hurdles thrown in them, and originally this ride was going to be a double lap or a loop of the Simpson Desert with Damo. So we were going to go Birdsville to Inaminka, which is Alice Springs, and then we were going to come back on the Madigan line literally a couple of days after this Transalp 750 was launched. The desert's in flood, is still in flood, so we stuck to the same dates and thought we'd come from Boulia down through Birdsville, have a look at the Simpson Desert on the Transalp, at least get a taste of it in the sand, and then work our way sort of zigzagging to South Australia through top of New South Wales and into Queensland.
The Honda Transalp is the latest generation of an old favourite, but it's yet to be properly tested here in Australia, and this ride was a good chance for us to take it into the outback and well out of its comfort zone. Recent heavy rains meant we were navigating around road closures seemingly in all directions, but with 6 days up our sleeve and a bike that's perfectly suited to long days, we began by picking our way from Boulia down to the iconic town of Birdsville, where the Simpson Desert starts, and of course, home to the sand dune known simply as Big Red. The sand dunes of the Simpson Desert are absolute heaven for two wheels. The Transalp was actually acing it, even though the sand was pretty soft and rutted from a lot of four-wheel drive action over the last week or so. It's a mind-blowing natural playground out here, and our Michelin Anarchy Wilds were hooking up just fine even though we left them at street pressures. It wasn't slowing any of us down. And even though he's achieved so much on two wheels through his career, winning GPs in arguably the toughest era of all time, you get Daryl Beattie out into the desert and he will moto all day. It's hard to explain why the Australian desert is such an amazing place to visit. But there's just a vibe, there's just a feeling you get when there are no boundaries, there are no walls, there are no buildings. The sky is enormous, the stars are incredible. The sunrises and the sunsets are unbeatable. After just an epic day on the bikes, we set up camp between dunes, enjoyed a beautiful sunset, a campfire, and got ready to get up nice and early to crack on again. The Transalp really wasn't built to tackle the sands of the Simpson Desert, but it had been handling everything we threw at it really well. But we still had one more test to give it before we left Birdsville, and that was to tackle the sand dune known simply as Big Red. There we go, the Transalp up Big Red. It's really ruddy at the moment. It's been a lot of four-wheel drives up and down it the last couple of days or the last week. That was mostly third gear. I had to click down to second because I screwed up just before the top. But that's good fun. With a fairly big day of riding ahead of us, we motored on, passing out of Queensland and sliding on into South Australia. I was pretty happy about that. Wash your beanie, you grub. The conditions on the day were absolutely perfect, and the recent rains helped keep the dust to a minimum. The boundlessly flat landscapes are absolutely mesmerising, and it's hard to keep your eyes on the road, even though there are no corners to worry about for hours. We made a quick stop at the Cordillo Downs station, which is said to be home to Australia's biggest wool shed. I've just pulled in quickly to check out Australia's largest wool shed in at Cordillo Downs between Birdsville and Inaminka. It is a big shed, I'll give it that. It's pretty impressive. We eventually arrived at the little town of Inaminka, which was inundated with caravanners making their way home from the Birdsville Big Bash. And not being super keen to camp between two humpbacks of the freeways, we made our way down the road a little bit further and found a nice dry riverbed to camp in for the night. It was a pretty chilly morning when we took off pre-dawn, and it was nice to see that sun finally come up over the horizon. With about 620 kilometres to get through, most of that was on blacktop today, which was a good chance to stretch the Transalp's legs. And our final destination was the brilliant camping grounds at Charlotte Plains. I can absolutely recommend dropping in here if you're ever in the area, and definitely take the opportunity to wash off some of that dust, or at least replace it with stinky mud from the artesian baths before you sit down at the campfire. Heading home after you've visited these areas is always kind of disappointing, and you spend most of your time thinking about when and how you can get back out there again. But after 6 days and over 3,000 kilometres, it was time to head back to the Daryl Beattie Adventures headquarters and park the bikes. The places we visited on the Transalp isn't exactly on everyone's doorstep, but it is right here in Australia, our own country, and it is worth every effort to go and see it and experience it. Forget Bali. Go and see Australia.